Hey everybody, it's Tim Gowling. I'm a wedding and lifestyle photographer based out of Eastern Ontario. And today I want to share some exciting news. Yes, news! I got a new piece of equipment, so let's stay tuned, find out. So what new piece of equipment did I buy? Well, for that, I'm gonna have to give you a little story. So previously, I had invested some equipment, some monies into some equipment for my business over the last couple of years. I had a few lenses kicking about. What lenses were these? Well, I had the fantastic Sigma 40mm 1.4. My heart breaks for that lens. Ah, I love that lens. So good, so good. But I had invested that money for the business. I'd also had the 85 1.4 Sigma Art Series lens, and we'll talk about the Canon EF 100mm macro lens as well, the L version. So let's get into some backstory, shall we? So I'd invested in this glass a couple of years ago, right? And I'd been using that equipment for work. Now, as you know, if you follow the channel, I recently got the Canon RF 1.4 VCM lens, which is on my B camera right now, recording me on the Canon R3. And then my other work camera, which is the Canon R5, the original one, and at the moment it's recording on the 35mm 1.4 VCM. So what led me from this Sigma, this beautiful Sigma lens, this 40mm 1.4. Well, I love the images from it. They were fantastic. Great focal length. I loved it. I got some amazing, amazing pictures with it. But if you don't know already, that thing weighed pretty much the same weight as my old 70-200 2.8 Sigma lens. I had the Sports Series and I used that for work. I did sell that last year when I got the new Canon 70-200 2.8 LZ lens. You can check out a video of mine that I have done on that lens. This lens, it was great for short periods of time. It was incredibly heavy. So heavy, in fact, that I hated lugging it around for 10 hours because it was too much. Too much on my back, too much on my bad shoulder, like my back. I have a broken T7. So it's a compression fracture. I can't get it fixed. It's been too long. I was in a car accident. I wasn't driving. Wearing the weight of my equipment is kind of important, as I've learned over the years. When you're working 10 hours, I would have trouble breathing because all the weight is on my shoulders. And that'd be at like between hours 9 and 10, I'd be struggling and I'd be wanting to move to lighter equipment. So this Sigma lens, I had enough of the weight. I'd end up sticking it in my roller bag and I would only use it for like the portrait parts. And it was heavy, super heavy. The focus, albeit good, it wasn't as good as the new RF line lenses. So at Christmas, I thought, I am done carrying it to weddings. It's too much. Like I loved it. It was a beautiful lens. But since I got the Canon RF 35mm 1.4 and I've used that at sessions and weddings, I love that lens. Like, yes, it does have its flaws, but it is good. Don't get me wrong. The focus is great. And it's a shame I didn't do any review videos on the Sigma 40mm 1.4. And that's my fault. I could still go back and show you pictures and stuff, but I can't do any like hands-on. So that's my fault. I didn't get a review video up on that mainly because I thought the lens wasn't new and maybe I couldn't do a review on it because it's discontinued, but that didn't stop me doing a review on the 120-300 f 2.8 Sigma sports lens. It's my own fault for not doing a review video on that. I'll take accountability for that. Mistake me. It just ended up sitting in my cabinet and I was using that lens to record content for you guys. However, since I got the 35mm 1.4, the VCM lens, it just sat in the cupboard and I wasn't using it. I'd invested money in the business on a business asset that wasn't making me money anymore. Yeah, I could have probably kept it for personal reasons, but it's better to reinvest and keep the business moving forward. So, part of business, I'm afraid. I also had the Sigma 85mm 1.4 lens, the Art Series lens by Sigma. I loved it. Those images were fantastic. It handled lens flares extremely well because it had that massive front element. And you can see my video that I made on that too. But again, I wasn't bringing it to weddings anymore. So it wasn't making me money. So I thought, you know what? Let's use the assets I have and reinvest in the business. And then I thought, well, I need some other glass for the business. Yes, I'm still operating on the Sigma Art Series 2470 2.8 Art Series lens. And I've had it in all weathers and it has been a fantastic lens. But I would like the RF 2470 2.8. I'm still doing some research on that. I probably I need to invest in it. But again, my backup camera for working at weddings is a 5D Mark III. Yes, it is very behind the times. It does get the job done, but I needed to keep at least one lens that I could still use on that camera in case my R5 or my R3 stopped working. So it makes sense for now to keep that 2470 2.8. And I'll probably keep it in the long run anyways, that lens, because I did buy it new and it's pretty beaten up now. It's got dents in it. It's got a couple of scratches here and there. So resale is not going to be all that high. I'll probably keep it up as a backup to my RF 2470 2.8 when I do make that purchase. What next lens choice could I have? I would like the RF 50mm 1.4 VCM. That's a lens that I would love. I thought to myself, well, I'd really like the new Canon RF 100mm L macro lens, because at that current time, I still had the EF 100mm L macro lens as well. I listed all three of these lenses on Marketplace, and then I thought, I'll give my friend a call at Henry's and see if he give me a ballpark figure on those lenses before I went down. And he did. And it was close enough, not as much as I would have got by selling this equipment secondhand on Facebook Marketplace, but then I don't have to deal with lots of people. It's a nice quick transaction, a couple of $100, and I got myself, check it out, here's the box. It's not in the box. Shake it up and break it. The RF 100mm L2.8 macro lens. So I think I already said, the RF mount. So I'm pretty stoked about that. Here it is, right here. If I turn it around, you can see it. It has a lens hood. The lens hood is a lot smaller, like shorter, than the EF 100mm lens. Now, because I traded 3 lenses in, I can't do a comparison of height, but there's a lot of videos out there and you can just look at the Google picture. The EF version is slightly shorter, but when you add the adapter, it becomes the same length as this one. The lens hood is nice and small, and what I found with the EF macro lens, albeit it was extremely sharp for those close-up detail shots, focus tracking for moving couples, it would still do it, and it would still do a nice job. There were a lot of images that I would throw away. I wouldn't deliver. So this has the better macro focusing abilities. And then when you use it with the R3, it says IS+, so you get an extra few stops of stabilization. I believe like on a R5 and other similar models, I think you have like 5 stops of stabilization. This isn't a review video. This is more like gear update and a little sneak peek. Check out the glass on that. My R3, my VCM's locked onto my face, so I don't know if I can get you guys to see the element. Look at the element! Ha! I'm a pirate. So I think this is pretty cool. I can't show it on my body because I don't have a third mirrorless lens camera, and that's something in the works, hopefully this year, if wedding season picks up. But it's nice. I like it. What drew me to changing my EF macro lens? Because a macro lens I don't use all that often on a wedding day. I use it for like 10-20 minutes getting the detail shots, and then it goes back in my bag. I like the ability that it has a closer focusing distance. By that I mean, like, it has a closer enlargement. The EF macro had a 1-to-1 magnification. So what you saw on the image sensor was like a 1-to-1 aspect of what you're photographing on the image sensor. This is a 1.4 magnification lens. So I can get just a little bit closer to those wedding rings and take some beautiful pictures. And at the end of the day, that's what I want. Also, May's coming up. So spring is nearly here. It's August. It snowed the other day. August. Why did I say August? It is April. Snow just snowed. It just snowed the other day. It was just starting to get warmer and then it snowed. We've had a couple of cold days. I'm hoping that's the last of it because I have the summer tires on my truck now. When everything starts coming out, I want to get some, I like doing wildlife pictures in my spare time, and I try and sell wildlife prints off my website and at the flea market that I go to with my portrait booth studio. I might do some experimenting this spring in May. May's usually a busy time because there's a local photography competition, so I'm out getting photos to enter in that competition and wildlife pictures for my own portfolio and artwork that I like to do. And I wouldn't mind throwing in some macro pictures this year, which even though I've had a macro lens for several years now, I haven't done that. I literally I bought it, stuck it in my camera bag, and it only comes out when I do wedding rings and the close-up details, the shoes, the lace, you know, stuff like that. I'm pretty stoked for this lens. Once I've done some work with it, I'm going to bring it out in a review video for you guys. Now, I know I'm a few years to the punch with this because this lens is a couple of years old already. However, I think it's still relevant. All right, before I forget, let's hop in and have a look at a couple of pictures that I took over the last couple of days that I had this lens. I got this lens just before Easter, so I had a couple of days before the long weekend to take a couple of pictures. Let's have a quick jump into Lightroom and have a look. Now, if you're asking, what do I use whilst I am editing? I use a Toolbox Elite. I love this thing. Bluetooth. It makes editing pictures a fucking breeze. Like, honestly, this is good. I love it. Power through those pictures. You don't have to remember all your keyboard shortcuts. It's just a couple of buttons, combination buttons. You can program it. I can use it in Photoshop, Lightroom, DaVinci Resolve, and what else can I use it in? I also made a custom map for using it in the Insta360 editing software, like the Insta360 Studio, because I didn't have anything that was pre-programmed, so I just made my own because you can program it from keyboard shortcuts. So I love it because I use a variety of different software. I can just put some of the shortcuts in the same place that do the same thing but are different keyboard combinations. So I do love it for that, and I'll quit pumping this up. It's not sponsored. It's something that I haven't done yet mentioned to you guys, and I thought I'd mention it to you now. So let's hop into Lightroom and have a look. So this first image here is of a flower that have now been thrown out. I took more than that. Now you will see this picture is superbly grainy. All right, so now that this picture is loaded, I took a picture of a flower. Now, as you can see, this was taken on my Canon R3 with the new macro lens. You look at that ISO. I took it at 1/100th of a second, so I was making sure I was testing that image stabilization at f14 at 102,400 ISO. Why was I doing that? Well, I wasn't using a flash. I just picked it up. It was that afternoon. I had other work to carry on with. I had my daughter home from school. So whilst she was having some lunch, after we went and picked this up, I thought I would snap off a few quick pictures. So I didn't get a flash out. As you can see, very, very grainy. I just slapped one of my custom preset that I made that I use on all my wedding pictures. Yeah, very grainy. You would expect more in focus at f14. Maybe they talked about some focus shift. However, I wasn't using flash. So, and at the very high ISO, you know, the image does degrade quite some amount. As you can see, this is not something that I would ever deliver, but I thought, hey, I'm using my R3. Let's have a go. Now with some image denoising, it would probably clean up the image quite a bit, but whatever. I'm not interested in that, doing that right now. It takes time. I can't bother. Anyways, even with high ISO, I mean, it's a testament to the R3. You know, you have a few extra stops of stabilization too with the R3 because it has the LPE19 batteries. I'd say for just like my first couple of pictures, yeah, I was impressed. You know, I mean, it really shows what the R3 can do too at 102,000 ISO. Like, I remember getting images like this from my old Olympus E450. That's going back some time, or my Canon 50D, even my 7D. The images would be more noisy at this at like 8,000 and below. Okay, so let's move on to the next day. The second day I had this lens, I thought, okay, I have a few moments to try out this lens with a flash. So I grabbed one of my flashes and mag mods because I don't have like a setup flash diffuser for doing macro photography, because I like taking pictures of wedding rings and all the little detail stuff. So doing macro is not my forte, but I want to have a go just for a bit of fun. Maybe I'll be able to sell some prints. So we'll go from there. And yeah, so here are some pictures that I took. And as you can see at f13 and 1/200th of a second with the flash at half power, I do remember my flash power that day, at 200 ISO, f13, so you can see immediately between 102,000 and 200 ISO that there is a lot more information retained. And look at that at f13, you know, I was doing this handheld, so I wasn't doing any kind of focus stacking, which when you get this close to subjects, you need to focus stack and then combine the layers in Photoshop. So all in all, I'm pretty pleased with that. It's really nice. Has some nice color rendering too. And this is at 100 magnification. So let's go into 200%. Handheld, I'm surprised focusing on such a small subject, even though I'm using servo AF. When you press the shutter, your camera will move, and when you're doing something this small, you're, even just by pressing the shutter and the camera taking a picture, you can lose focus. So at 200, I'm pretty impressed. Let's be fair. And then here is a strawberry. I did do a couple of a gradient mask on this as well, because I had the flash on top and, you know, it was darker. I'm not a macro photographer, as you can probably tell, but look at that. It holds some detail in there, eh? Look at those seeds. And I was like, as close as you could get that the focus would let me. It'd be interesting to try some extension tubes on this thing. Now, I know Canon don't do extension tubes yet for the RF mount, which I am surprised that they don't, because it's just a hollow tube. And you can't use teleconverters on this lens. So I might check out Kenko. I heard of another brand that I was going to look at that sold through VizTech, and I've forgotten what brand that is, but I'll just have to do a Google search, I guess. And then another one of a flower, a little bit underexposed, but it was a very bright yellow. I didn't do any major tweaking, just applied my own personal wedding color preset to this. Yeah, my wedding preset. Because I just wanted to, you know, I did this just before recording it. I'm impressed. I'm happy. Again, f13, ISO 200, 1/200th of a second. At this small, I'm impressed. Like, I'm happy. I should be able to get some pretty good details of people's rings. Even better details than what I have had before. And then here is a pencil on a shelf. It's got hair on it. But look at that. That's pretty cool. You can see the plane of focus and how thin it is, even at such a small aperture of f13, where behind the pencil is out, you know, starting to go out of focus. And then right here too, the focus is now not there either. It's not focused there. So there's like a strip here from here to here. like around here, that is in focus. So as the pencil moves further away, it becomes in focus again, and then it starts getting out of focus. I think this lens can go down to f22, but after f16, you're getting diffraction and your images start to look softer. So is there any point shooting at f16 and below? No, there is not. What would I better do is focus stacking. But focus stacking without a tripod, I'm not going to be able to do that. Sorry for the stutter. But yeah, I couldn't do focus stacking handheld unless I'm really careful. Yeah, I'm sure it's possible, as long as you're taking like a wider field of view, and then you can layer the images in Photoshop and then crop out all the different views, because I'll do stacking of images all the time in Photoshop. You know, when I've got to people swap or head swap someone in group pictures, or even swap one person from one picture to another picture, and that same person from the other picture back to the original picture. I have done that before. It's doable, but you always lose like a little bit around the edges because you've got to crop in, because the pictures when you're shooting handheld, they don't magically line up. That's that. There's just a few pictures that I'm able to show you today, and I'm looking forward to doing a full review on this for you guys. Once I've put it through through its paces later in the year with weddings, because my next wedding is not for a couple of months, and I believe my next one's just an elopement. So using this lens probably not going to happen then. But I do have some bigger weddings coming up in the year, so maybe later on in the year we'll be able to pump out a full professional review about this lens. And then I can also do some comparison shots from my EF lens that I had. But I'm pretty excited, pretty stoked to get out with it. And I look forward to you guys joining me in the future. Hope you guys have a good one. Please like, comment, and subscribe. All your growth really helps. And I'd love to hear from you, how you guys are doing. Have a great day.